Good morning. Day one of Chinese President Xi Jinping's first visit to the nation since taking office. Summit talks yield multiple agreements on multiple fronts. Wall Street climbs to new heights as the Dow Jones Industrial Average tops 17,000 for the first time following rosy job reports in the U.S. The first half of 2014 in entertainment involves stars going public with relationships. Now Denny Hong has the review. Technically a fruit, legally a vegetable, but who cares because they're great. There's more than meets the eye in the culinary possibilities on Korea Today, Friday, July 4th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And a good Friday morning. Thank you for joining us on Korea Today. I'm Kim Myung alongside Jin-ju and Kim Min-jung.
Good morning, everyone. President Park Geun-hye greeted her Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping yesterday in a grand ceremony with a dinner banquet and all. But I think the Chinese leader was probably most impressed with her Chinese, as we can see in this quick video. Let's take a look.
내 개인의 시간은 모두 어디로 갔나? 라고 말씀하실 정도로 업무에 열중하고 계신다는
So that was her saying something in Chinese.
I have no idea. I was not paying attention to my Chinese
apparently
class.
she had said you're so busy working that you don't have time for yourself. So referring to how busy President Xi Jinping is working these days.
And that's a line from a recent comedy film in China. And it's not her first time that she's spoken in Chinese. During her visit to Beijing last year, she made an entire speech in Chinese at Tsinghua University, a move to better connect with the Chinese people.
Pretty impressive.
Definitely. I don't know how good your Chinese is, but mine is just terrible. The only three words I know is 我爱你, and that's
I
it.
know what that means. Did you just tell me you love me?
Yes, I do. I love our viewers as well.
All right, well, it definitely was a busy day for Presidents Park Geun-hye and Xi Jinping on Thursday as they agreed on a number of important issues, including denuclearizing North Korea and strengthening their bilateral economic ties. The two sides reaffirmed their commitment to speed up the two-year-old free trade talks between Korea and China and boost trade that stands at $230 billion as of last year.
양국 간 금융 인프라 구축에 큰 성과를 이룬 것을 기쁘게 생각합니다.
We set a goal of reaching a bilateral trade volume of $300 billion by 2015 and agreed to provide improved conditions.
The Chinese leader also proposed commemorating the year 2015 together as the 70th anniversary of victory in World War II and the liberation of the Korean Peninsula from Japan's colonial rule. The two sides also agreed to designate next year as Visit China Year and 2016 as Visit Korea Year and gradually expand the visa-free status for Korean and Chinese citizens.
Following the announcement of Japan's plan to ease sanctions on North Korea, Seoul says this move must not interfere with efforts to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. South Korea's foreign ministry said on Thursday that the partial lifting of sanctions and other agreements between Pyongyang and Tokyo should be pursued with transparency and that these measures should be carried out in a way that it won't hamper international cooperation in curbing North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Seoul also plans to closely monitor the possible impact the sanctions lift will have on inter-Korean relations. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced the lifting of some of Tokyo's sanctions in Pyongyang or on Pyongyang after the reclusive regime agreed to reinvestigate its abduction of Japanese nationals decades ago.
Pyongyang is calling on Seoul to accept its offer to stop all cross-border hostilities, stressing that the proposal is a sincere and generous one that can rectify the sour inter-Korean relations. In a commentary published by the North's Nodong Shinmun on Thursday, Pyongyang urged Seoul to drop its prejudice and suspicion towards the communist state and accept its conciliatory gesture, adding that the ball is now in the South's court. The comments came came 2 days after South Korea rejected the North's offer to end cross-border provocations and call off the Seoul-Washington joint military drills scheduled for next month. Experts say the North's latest string of comments marks a departure from its previous posture of criticizing the South for turning down its proposal, instead highlighting its sincerity ahead of landmark events including the Incheon Asian Games and the Pope's visit to South Korea next month.
It's Chinese President Xi's first visit to Seoul after taking office, and as mentioned earlier, he held summit talks with President Park Geun-hye yesterday, which lasted for nearly 3 hours. The Chinese leader's visit has widely been viewed as another step forward in the rapidly evolving relationship between Seoul and Beijing, and as expected, agreements on multiple fronts were reached during their summit talks. And their shared stance on North Korea's nuclear program was, of course, at the center of attention. Our producer Lee Ji-yeon has more.
It was the fifth meeting since both leaders took office. President Park Geun-hye visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping held extended summit talks on Thursday during the first day of Xi's much-anticipated visit to Seoul. The Chinese leader broke conventions by visiting South Korea first instead of its longtime ally North Korea. And in a joint press conference came a stronger message for Pyongyang.
저와 시 주석님은 한반도에서의 핵무기 개발에 확고히 반대한다는 입장을 재확인하고
Denuclearization, peace and stability on the Korean peninsula would benefit all six-party talk nations, and the participating members should achieve these through dialogue and negotiations.
The agreement to work towards reviving multilateral talks while, quote, firmly opposing any nuclear arms development is a step up in tone from a previous joint statement in which Pyongyang's nuclear program was simply labeled a grave threat. The leaders agreed to take their strategic cooperative partnership to the next level and work closely to maintain and uphold peace in Northeast Asia. President Xi's visit comes at a time when Japan is making an aggressive right-wing push in the region, reinterpreting its constitution to allow it to exercise more military force and raising questions about its wrongdoings in its militant past. The joint declaration did not include a specific message for Tokyo, but the two leaders agreed to conduct joint research into the issue of Japan's wartime sexual slavery, which took place before and during World War II. On the economic front, the two presidents agreed to speed up free trade agreement talks, which first opened in 2012, with the goal of concluding negotiations by the end of this year. Also, Presidents Park and Xi agreed to implement direct transaction of their local currencies as soon as possible, which will allow businesses to settle their trading bills without an extra conversion to dollars. On Friday, President Xi Jinping is expected to meet with South Korean lawmakers and attend a business and trade forum before concluding his two-day visit. Lee Ji-yeon for Korea Today.
And for more on yesterday's Seoul-Beijing summit, we're now joined by Dr. Bong Young-sik, Senior Research Fellow from the ASEAN Institute for Policy Studies. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
So, as we heard in the report, the joint statement came with a much stronger language against Pyongyang's nuclear program, and President Xi has visited South Korea before going to North. So, how will the North Korean leadership take this?
The meetings in total lasted for 3 hours, and it is a fifth meeting between President Park and President Xi Jinping. It's a clear break from the traditional pattern of diplomacy by Chinese leadership, in which the first visit usually was Pyongyang, not Seoul. So it sends a very clear signal to Kim Jong-un leadership in North Korea. That decision reflects disappointment about the Kim Jong-un leadership amongst the Chinese elites for two reasons. One is that Kim Jong-un leadership, despite the very high initial expectation of different pattern of politics and policy making by a young leader, North Korea went ahead with a third nuclear test, despite the clear warning and opposition from Beijing. And second was the surprising purge of his uncle Jang Song-taek, who was the symbol of internal effort in North Korea for economic reforms in Chinese style. So closer relationship with Seoul is sending a message to leadership in Pyongyang that North Korea needs to make critical changes.
So do you see any possibility of China further distancing itself from North Korea in the future?
Well, it depends on how far would be far enough. But I don't think that there will be any complete isolation of North Korea or Chinese leadership fundamentally abandon North Korea, because North Korea holds a great deal of strategic values to China. If I borrow the analogy of Facebook, that the Chinese leadership has not really deleted North Korea from the list of friends. It was clicked like it's complicated, right? But it's not divorced yet. We have to take into account that the implications of the U.S. strategy to rebalance in Asia and Japan under the new interpretation of its constitution and its right to collective self-defense, that the strategic value as a buffer zone that North Korea holds for China has increased. So it is still premature for China to drastically and fundamentally change its traditional assessment of North Korea's value.
And as Seoul and Beijing were boosting their ties, Japan is working closely with North Korea on the issue of its abducted nationals. So do you think that, can we expect any significant changes in the diplomatic dynamics in Northeast Asia?
We have to wait and see. It is true that President Park Geun-hye of South Korea expressed her concern about the Abe administration in Japan, trying to undermine the very foundation of Japan's apology for its past atrocities during the colonial period. She pointed out in her interview with CCTV of China that Abe administration's effort to undermine the Kono statement actually damaged greatly the mutual trust between the two countries. And President Xi Jinping and President Park made that point very clear in the joint statement that both countries would consider unilateral regional cooperation, the term which is largely interpreted as both countries will augment their effort to address the historical and territorial issues that Japan has not been as sincere as it should in the eyes of these two countries. But we have to wait whether this desire to have a common stance to put pressure on Abe administration in Japan to accept the Japan's responsibility for the past atrocities, whether it will actually lead to a very different strategic position of South Korea vis-a-vis China and Japan.
Right. And slightly moving on to the economic front, the two leaders vow to speed up their free trade negotiations in the future. Now, are there any challenges that you will want to talk about, or could they get past their differences?
In the joint statement, both leaders confirm that both sides would strengthen the effort to conclude the FTA negotiations by the end of the year to make the FTA comprehensive and at the high level. But we have to see whether the both countries will actually reach this goal. It is apparent that China is the most important trading partner for South Korea. The trade volume in the excess of $270 billion last year is more than South Korea's trade volume with Japan, US, and Russia combined. So there's a need to upgrade the economic partnership with China for South Korea. But there are a lot of hurdles remained. One is that reservations inside South Korea about the quality of the Chinese products. According to the recent surveys conducted by the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, about 80% of South Koreans show reservations or hold negative views on products made in China. And a significant number of South Koreans expressed their concern about the safety for the food product and agriculture and fishery products imported from China. So the FTA negotiations should appropriately address this concern in South Korean society.
And before we let you go, some say it's important for South Korea to balance its relations between China and one of its other allies, the U.S. So how do you think Washington feels about the evolving relationship between South Korea and China, and how can Seoul maintain this balance between the two?
In my personal opinion, Park Geun-hye administration has been successfully and clearly sending the message to Washington that South Korea has all the right reasons to upgrade its relationship with China, not at the expense of undermining the traditional partnership with Washington. As I said, that China is the most important trading partner for South Korea, and South Korea needs China's influence and support to curb military actions of North Korea and move ahead with its effort for the denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. So we have to careful in framing South Korea's balancing effort between Beijing and Washington. It's not so much about South Korea going to choose China over the United States, or South Korea choosing United States at the expense of China. We have to be aware of making a false choice. The goal for South Korea should be upgrading and expanding its cooperative relationship with both United States and China.
So balancing the relations between the two will be important. Thank you, Dr. Bong, for your time today.
Thank you.
Happy Friday morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers and all of the top local headlines on President Park Geun-hye and Chinese President Xi Jinping's summit this morning that was held yesterday afternoon. After the meeting, the two leaders released a joint statement alongside a press conference. So let's take a look at some of the things that were said. First up on Joseon-ilbo. And to begin with, this article focuses on North Korea issues. The headline reads, Korea-China Summit, firm opposition to nuke development on the Korean Peninsula. Now, following the summit talks, President Park and her Chinese counterpart Xi expressed their opposition to a possible nuclear test by North Korea, as well as nuclear weapons development on the Korean Peninsula. And as the sub-headlines they say, Xi said he supports the realization of a peaceful unification of the two Koreas, and that South Korea and China's dialogue on security issues should become regularized. Now here they are in this image, the two presidents shaking hands at their joint news conference, in which President Park said the two leaders share the same view that North Korea's denuclearization should be achieved without fail. Meanwhile, on Donga-ilbo, the story at the bottom of the front page is actually on Japan's lifting of partial sanctions. Now, you did hear about this earlier in the program as well. This is the latest movement coming from Japan regarding the North, quite timely considering Japan made the announcement yesterday when Xi Jinping and Park Geun-hye were to hold their summit. The header says North Korea, Japan, close eye on South Korea, China, Abe to lift sanctions on North. Japan said it will relax some of its sanctions on the North in return for its reopening of a probe into the fate of Japanese citizens abducted by the reclusive state decades ago. A fresh report emerged, in fact, that some of them were still alive. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told reporters that North Korea's special committee is now fully authorized to launch an effective investigation into any organization it finds necessary. Now, another story on Gyeongyang-Shinmun regarding what these sanctions were that Japan lifted. There we go. And this one is titled Japan to partially permit entry of North Korean citizens. In the lifting of some of the sanctions, Japan will lift travel curbs to and from North Korea and also end restrictions on the amount of money that can be sent or brought to the impoverished North without notifying Japanese authorities. It will also allow port calls by North Korean ships for humanitarian purposes. And leaving that aside, let's go to some business news here on the Mail Business newspaper. This one below those images. And another agenda at yesterday's summit table was, of course, the Korea-China FTA. The headline reads, Korea-China agreed to seal free trade pact by year's end. This is the first time that the state heads pledged to do so after the two countries expressed their commitment several times, in fact, at working levels. And the subheadline, they say that aside from this, the two bodies also agreed to set up an offshore RMB trading center in Seoul, agreeing to open the direct transaction market in yuans. And this will enable clearance and settlement of trade between the two countries in Chinese currency. And finally, for a look at the Korea Economic Daily, very quickly. And adding more on the summit's outcome regarding the two countries' economic developments, the title says, China further opens manufacturing market and Korea the agricultural market. So the two sides have decided to put more effort into expanding these respective markets for Korea in the agricultural industry for farming produce and China in the petrochemical industry for automobile steel. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Friday. Wish you all a great weekend, and coming up are the stock numbers from Thursday.
Yay, it is Friday today, but we are looking at some overcast skies, though.
Yep, that's right. And if
Maybe that's good news because it won't be too sunny and
See,
too
that's
hot.
what you're thinking, right? But the heat wave is coming along. We are expecting warmer temperatures than yesterday, at least. But for more on today's weather and a peek into the weekend forecast, we'll go to Chun Song-cho, who joins us with all you need to know.
Good morning to you, Song-cho.
Good morning, guys. I'm reporting live from the Yongsan Family Park. The monsoonal front has retreated to the south of the peninsula, but a bit of precipitation is still expected in some areas along the east coast as well as in the southern regions. For the rest of the country, a good amount of clouds will stay with us today, but it's the hot, sticky weather that's going to annoy a lot of people. Midday highs will jump up into the upper 20s again today in most cities, and with that, let's take a closer look at today's temperature readings. Seoul and Daejeon are the hottest at 30, while Gangneung, however, remains the coolest at 22 degrees Celsius due to strong easterly winds. Tomorrow evening, the monsoonal front will come back again, affecting Jeju first with a lot of rain. This will spread to other southern regions on Sunday and nationwide on Monday. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to you, Minjung.
Let's now check the stories that are making headlines around the world. Our Eunice Kim is standing by for that at the News Center. Good morning to you, Eunice.
Good morning, Minjung.
We'll begin on a positive note today for a change. Employment figures in the U.S. boosted Wall Street to a record high.
Yeah, it's great news for Americans heading into their July 4th holiday weekend. U.S. markets, which just closed hours ago, saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average surpass the 17,000 mark for the first time. And as you alluded, the boost of confidence coming on the momentum of a strong jobs report. The U.S. economy added 288,000 jobs in June, exceeding expectations. Now that gain was widespread across sectors, including construction. The latest gains dropped the unemployment rate to 6.1%, which is the lowest in 6 years since September of 2008. Economists say the turnaround from the first quarter's dismal performance should help spur purchases from Asia and Europe. Turning now to the Middle East, street battles continues to break out in East Jerusalem, in the neighborhood where the kidnapped and murdered Palestinian teen was from. Angry residents in the 17-year-old's neighborhood hurled stones and firebombs at Israeli security forces, who responded with rubber bullets, tear gas, and smoke grenades. Israeli investigators have yet to confirm the circumstances of Mohammed Abu Qadir's death, but it has raised suspicions of a reprisal attack against the kidnap and murder of 3 Israeli teens whose bodies were found days earlier.
I suppose we're going to end on a low note. Another unrest, this time in Ukraine. It's President Petro Poroshenko says he is ready to renew a ceasefire with pro-Russian separatists if it is observed by both sides.
Right. He made his intention known in a phone call with U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, according to Russian news agency RIA Novosti. He also outlined other conditions, including freeing all hostages and controlling battle lines in eastern Ukraine by the OSCE. Meanwhile, the leaders of France and Germany have asked Russian President Vladimir Putin to intervene and encourage the separatists to return to talks by July 5th to define conditions for the ceasefire, according to the French presidential office. And that's a wrap of the global headlines we're following this morning.
And still to come, as we head into the second half of 2014, we look back on some of the major stories that broke on the entertainment front, from celebrity romance to new superstars leading the Hallyu boom. Denny Hong sums it all up for us. Time for a news sum up. We all know that you have to cut down on carbs if you want to lose weight, but not only to lose weight, but to boost your immune system, apparently.
Right. But it's so difficult to stay away from white bread or snack. And there's a test you can use to find out whether you are actually addicted to carbs. And for more on this and other keywords, our Seo Mi-sorang joins us from the digital room. Good morning, Mi-sorang.
Good morning, guys. So if you answer yes to more than half of the questions, you should question your own dietary habits. I'll show you what the questions are in just a second so that you can take the test for yourself. But before I do that, let's run through some of the other issues that are trending online. All eyes are on the Chinese First Lady Peng Liyuan. More on this later. Amidst controversy, the KFA president convinces Ho Myung-bo to remain as coach of the Korean national football team. The monsoon front arrives in Seoul and the central regions, the entire peninsula now in full monsoon season. Many Chinese fans congratulate Korean director Kim Tae-yong and Chinese actress Tang Wei on their marriage announcement. Now, going back to the first listing there, many health professionals recommend that we keep our dietary carbohydrate intake to under 100 grams per day. Now, this is easier said than done for those addicted to carbohydrates. And if you answer yes to more than half, 3 of the following questions, then you should question whether you are addicted as well. Let's get started. The first pair of questions is about simple carbohydrates, the worst kind of all carbs. Question 1. I always have chocolates and processed snacks around me. 2. Just the thought of sweet food makes me crave them. Carbs cause a spike in blood glucose levels after intake, followed by a dip as insulin kicks in. The next questions assess how much we crave that glucose hit and how much we're affected by its after effects. Question 3. I can't sleep without a late night snack. And 4. I feel lazy and tired after a meal. Carbs are less filling per calorie when compared with proteins and dietary fiber, and that's what the final 2 questions are about. Number 5, I feel hungry and tired by mid-afternoon. And 6, even though I just finished a meal, I don't feel satisfied. So if you've answered yes to more than 3 questions, doctors suggest doing regular aerobic exercises to minimize insulin overdrive and to keep making conscious decisions to replace carbs for proteins. Moving on to our next issue, with Chinese President Xi Jinping arriving in Seoul yesterday, the fashion pack turned all their eyes to the stylish First Lady, what she's wearing and what she's doing. In her first visit to Korea as First Lady, Peng Li-yuan arrived at the Incheon airport in classic pieces, but with a twist. She paired a green blouse with a black knee-length pencil skirt, topped off with a cream raglan bolero jacket. While her husband Xi Jinping held summit talks with President Park, Peng visited the Changdeokgung Palace under the guidance of Cho Yoon-suk, the senior presidential secretary for political affairs, and Chung Moo-soo, the head of Cultural Heritage Administration. Peng commented that the beautiful harmony between past and present was mesmerizing and that it was like being on the set of Jewel in the Palace, referring to the 2003 period Korean drama Daejanggeum that was explosively popular in China. And that's a wrap up for today's edition of your Daily News Sum Up.
The world's third most common form of cancer. Figures show colorectal cancer accounts for nearly 10% of all cancers diagnosed worldwide. And with the increasing number of people falling victim to rectal cancer, medical professionals are working to improve treatment. Let's get a look at one doctor who is making quantum leaps.
For 20 years, he has been taking on patients with rectal cancer, trying to improve their chances of survival and to minimize risks from complications post-surgery. Using laparoscopic and robotic surgery, he has strived to provide complete recovery for his patients. Rectal cancer is found 15 centimeters from the anus at the end part of the 1.5 meter long large intestine. Rectal cancer surgery is considered more difficult than some of the other cancer surgeries. This is because there are many other organs such as the bladder, uterus, prostate, and nerves located within the pelvis, making it difficult to conduct the operation without damaging other areas. Despite the difficulties, Dr. Yoon-suk is set to conduct near-perfect surgeries. This means removing all the tumors while preventing any damage to surrounding nerves and organs.
Once you're diagnosed with rectal cancer, there are two goals for treatment. One is to completely remove the cancer cells so they don't reoccur, and the other is to preserve the anus in its original state.
In order to achieve the first goal, doctors must remove the tumor and the mesorectum, which is the fat layer that surrounds the rectum. This is because if the layer bursts, the cancer could return. At the same time, the surrounding nerves must be well preserved in order to reduce complications such as erectile dysfunction and urinary problems. With a surgery that requires meticulous skills, Dr. E has 2,000 cases under his belt with the laparoscopic surgery, allowing him to remove the tumor with great precision. And the results prove his strengths in the field. For Dr. E, the survival rate of his patients for over 5 years is 92% when in the second stage and 84% when in the third stage. This is 10% higher than conventional statistics reported in the industry. Survivor beyond 5 years in the medical field is considered complete treatment, which is why it holds greater significance. Dr. E also focuses on preserving the anus in its original state. Without the anus, not only do patients have to use a colostomy bag for the rest of their lives, some also give up surgery in fear of losing their anus. For these patients, Dr. E chooses to operate with a robot.
Compared to regular surgery, robotic surgery allows you to look at the operation area 10 times larger. And because you get a three-dimensional view with high resolution, you can secure a more accurate perspective. Also using the robotic arm, which can reach places that the human hand cannot, doctors can conduct more meticulous and detailed surgeries.
As a result, the rate of anus preservation is extremely high at 94%. This patient, who is 60 years old, had a tumor sitting close to the anus, making it difficult to preserve the area. But using robotic surgery, the team was not only able to treat cancer, but preserve the anus as well.
I received robotic surgery from Dr. Yoon-suk, and the results were good, so I was able to leave the hospital earlier than others. I could also return to my normal life, go traveling, and recovery was so fast that other people didn't believe I used to be a patient.
Dr. Yoon-suk leads the way with his vast experience and cutting-edge techniques, giving greater hope to patients looking for complete recovery from rectal cancer.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the South Korean national football team. Now, earlier yesterday, the KFA announced that manager Hong Myung-bo will continue his role as the head coach of the national team, which is good news for some, but what's next for him and his team? Well, according to the KFA, the team is now scheduled to face off against Jordan in a friendly for their final A match this year on November 14th in Jordan. But shortly after that comes the 2015 Asian Cup in Australia, where manager Hong Myung-bo is now pressured to do big things with the team in this tournament. But now the big question is, what kind of changes will be made and how will this affect the future of Park Ju-young? And now moving over to baseball, where it's now official as the New York Yankees have signed a young talent from Yatap High School named Park Hyo-jun. Now, Park, who was the star shortstop for Yatap High School, has agreed to sign with the Yankees for $1.16 million and will begin playing ball in single-A minor league team. The 18-year-old has been continuously sought after by the Yankees and is known as a five-tool player. Now, the Yankees stated that they'll raise him to be the player who will one day fill the void left by Derek Jeter when he retires after the season. And now moving over to some Thursday night KBO action, the LG Twins win again over the Hanwha Eagles 5-4 with the Nexen Heroes beating the Lotte Giants 10-9 and the NC Dinos beat the SK Wyverns 11-7. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Tucson Bears take on the Kia Tigers. Now, of course, going into the game here, first inning of the game, Lee Dae-hyung, an RBI double to left center, gives the Kia Tigers the 1-0 lead before Na Ji-won makes it 2-0 here with an RBI single to right. But now the fourth inning with the man on, Choi Jae-hoon drills this ball to deep left field, and there it goes, gone, and we're tied 2-2. But next inning, Ang Chi-hong at bat, and there it goes deep to right field, and that one's gone, a 3-run shot, and Kia takes the lead 5-2. Sixth inning, more from Kia, this time Kim Joo-chan, and no doubt about it, and it's now 6-2. Now, ninth inning of the game, Chung Soo-bin pinch hits, and there it goes, back, gone. It's 6-3, but the Kia Tigers hang on to win this game, 6-3, your final score. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And it is time for our Friday morning entertainment news with Denny Hong joining us. Good morning, Denny.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this past week, there was a lot of entertainment stories that were trending, some good and, of course, some bad. So we are going to be looking at the trending issues in the entertainment industry from this past week. Girl Group 2NE1's member Park Bo-hum was swept up in a controversy in relation to smuggling drugs into the country, and the head of her management agency came to her defense, explaining the singer has been receiving long-term psychological treatment after seeing a close friend pass away when she was young. He went on to say the singer was unaware the drugs in question were not certified for use in Korea. Hallyu star Lee Young-ae is said to have donated roughly $100,000 to a Taiwanese woman who went into premature labor in Seoul after getting into an accident. The baby weighed only 1 kilogram after it was born and has been fighting for its life for roughly 4 months. The actress privately donated the money to the Taiwanese couple after hearing this heartbreaking news.
Beautiful inside and out.
Yes.
The Hollywood movie The Prince, featuring K-pop singer Rain, is set to premiere on August 22nd in North America. Rain stars as a cold-blooded killer alongside Bruce Willis in this movie. The film is going to premiere in Korea in the second half of the year.
I don't know where she is.
This past Tuesday, the newest member of the girl group Kara has finalized in the live competition called the Kara Project. The winner, Ho Young-ji, grabbed first place after demonstrating her versatility in her performances. The group will make a comeback this summer as a quartet with 3 returning original members.
Everything's a reality program now.
Right. And as we enter the second half of the year, looking back on the first half of the year, there was quite a lot of romance going on in the entertainment scene.
Love is in the air, definitely. There was a lot of romance stories that came out in the first half of the year, as well as, of course, a lot of top Hallyu actors making names for themselves overseas, and even some comebacks of old groups that are fan favorites as well. So let's take a look at the trending stories from the first half of 2014. Celebrity romance. It's one of the stories that drove the entertainment industry in the first half of this year. Just yesterday, one of the biggest stories broke, revealing that Chinese actress Tang Wei from Lust Caution will be tying the knot with Korea's film director Kim Tae-yong.
This was huge.
This is still huge.
Yep.
The first couple to go public with their dating on January 1st of this year was Girls' Generation's Yoona and actor Lee Seung-gi. Only 2 days later, on the 3rd, came news from singers Soo-young and Jung Kyung-ho officially announcing their relationship. And in May, Girls' Generation's Tiffany and 2PM's Nikun also went public with their romance. More recently, Taeyeon and EXO's Baekhyun were caught on camera on a date. They have reportedly been dating for 4 months now, becoming the first couple from the same management agency, SM Entertainment.
Now at least 5, right?
Yes.
These days, when celebrity romance stories break, they deny them. It gives the impression that they're being dishonest. So if the story breaks, and if it's true, it has become more of a trend to just simply say that they're dating.
Meanwhile, it's not just singers, but actors who created headlines. Actress Bae Doona and Hollywood star Jim Sturgis transcended borders with their romance, and Cherim also went public with her relationship with Chinese actor Gao Ji-hee, receiving blessings from many. The second most widely covered topic of the first half of this year were the many actors emerging as new Hallyu celebrities, sweeping up markets in China and Southeast Asia with a vast range of dramas. At the center of that was actor Kim Soo-hyun, who created a sensation with My Love from the Star and the Do Min-jun fad that followed in China. He received more than $500,000 for featuring on an entertainment show, and he's ranked in roughly $30 million from ads and created a huge sensation in the country.
많은 사랑을 받고 있는 프로그램에 초대를 받게 돼서 너무너무 기분이 좋고요. 또 영광이라고 생각합니다.
Currently, the Kim Soo-hyun craze continues on in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, putting him on top of the list of Hallyu stars. Last month, one of his fans in Hong Kong even bought a full-spread advertisement worth roughly $40,000, rooting for him to win an award at the Baeksang Arts Awards.
In China, if entertainment shows can get Kim Soo-hyun on air, and if it means flying him on a private jet, they will go ahead with it. They're putting that much effort into it, and recently we've seen fan event tickets selling for almost $3,500.
The drama My Love from the Star itself is immensely popular in China, and the love for the character in it, Do Min-jun, has been the main drive fueling Kim Soo-hyun's popularity.
Also on the list of rising stars, especially in China, are Lee Jong-suk, Park Hae-jin, and Park Hee-chun, who are considered some of the leading icons in the new Hallyu boom.
The Chinese entertainment market differs in the sense that things get more popular as they get older. It's the opposite from Korea and more similar to Japan. So if stars can continue to appeal to that market, they'll see their popularity going up.
The final trend that swept up the celebrity scene was the return of superstars from the past. Popular singers from the 90s, such as Park Hyo-shin, Hui-sung, Im Chang-jung, and others, all made comebacks and have been well received by the public. Group GOD kickstarted the trend in April, making a major comeback as all 5 member groups, for the first time in 12 years, their album not only swept up music charts, seats from their comeback concert completely sold out. Recently, they also unveiled a song for their fans called Sky Blue Promise, which has grabbed first place on 9 music charts. The group is scheduled to put out its next album on the 11th of this month, building up anticipation.
Just as big as ever, right?
Indeed. The duo Fly to the Sky also returned from a 5-year hiatus, topping 10 music charts and grabbed first place on major network K-pop shows 1 week after their comeback.
A lot of singers from previous times seem to have been inspired by GOD coming back together and Fly to the Sky releasing a new album, and the fact that they've done well. Nothing has been made public yet, but I do know that other singers are also discussing working on new projects.
The first half of 2014 offered a stream of headline grabbers, and more fun and head-turning stories are expected in the second half.
I was really surprised to see that SM Entertainment actually admitted that these couples were going out because they usually had denied all these rumors. And Hallyu of FX is in the spotlight these days, right?
Well, this is kind of a resurgence of something that came out last September, actually, because last September, FX's Hallyu and dynamic duos Cheja, they were actually seen holding hands, walking down the street together, and so that sparked rumors, but their agencies both denied it. But more recently, Cheja actually misplaced his wallet, and in there was a photo of both them together, and so that kind of re-sparked the rumor mill. So we'll see if this time around either they'll deny it again or, you know, maybe they'll admit it this time. We'll we never know.
These Korean stars are gaining popularity in China. Maybe that's understandable because we do look similar, I suppose, with the Chinese. But they're gaining popularity in South America. I think that's quite astonishing.
Yeah. When it comes to the South American leg, I guess, of the Hallyu boom, it's probably because more of the singers that go over and perform in those countries where previously they have not done so before. Especially this year, in the first half, especially in January, SS501, they actually went over in Peru, Chile, and Bolivia, and they actually had like thousands of fans show up every time they landed in the countries, as well as they were the first K-pop group to have a solo concert in Bolivia as well, which kind of raised a lot of media attention there too. And so when it comes to those countries, sure, but Mexico and Brazil, you always have your staples, you know, Super Junior's still there, along with CN Blue, SHINee, and of course UKISS. They are still growing their popularity in those countries too. So South America is pretty much a growing target market.
It's pretty neat hearing about news in South America and other parts of the world. Thank you, Denny, for that. Next time you come, we hope to hear about news break about your relationship.
I vehemently deny every single
okay. All right, we'll get a look at your top 5 songs for the K-pop charts.
It is July, and that means tomato or tomatoes, depending on how you want to say it, is in season, right? How do you say it, Matthew Chung?
Oh, I say delicious. I mean, like, that's
Delicious.
probably my word for it, especially this time of the year. I mean, to me, there's no other quintessential summer food, whether it be fruit, vegetable. I mean, we can get that into later.
Right.
So let's see what makes this dish so special and what we can do with it this time of the year. So there's probably no other vegetable, or is it a fruit, that symbolizes summer better than the tomato. Today, we're at Minyoung Farms, and here, going through the tomato orchards, there's nothing to me that smells better. There's nothing that's more redolent of the summer than walking past tomato plants. So here they grow all sorts of varieties of tomatoes, but the most popular at this moment probably has to be the chal tomato. So the char tomato, it's an interesting one. Char, the prefix, it means something that's sticky or gluey. And it's given that name because it's packed full of that liquid, that gel that the seeds are suspended in.
If you want to eat fresh tomatoes, it's better to go for slightly unripe tomatoes. But if you want sweet ones, you should choose those that are completely red.
So tomato, fruit or vegetable? All right, so let's clear this up right now. The tomato, it's a fruit. However, in terms of basic culinary usage, the way that we generally tend to perceive it as, it's a vegetable. So for our first dish, we're going to do a play off of an American classic, the BLT, the bacon, lettuce, and tomato. So let's get to cooking. Here in Korea, one thing that we really enjoy is smoked duck. In fact, it tastes almost like ham. So here we have the full duck, and it's been smoked, so it's all cooked. We're going to just slice the breasts out. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna trim off all the edges, make this look nice and pretty. And this is gonna help release some of that fat when we cut it later. So pan's nice and hot, got the oil in there. There you go. You don't want your heat on too high for this. We have it on about medium-low. And that's just because we just want to get that skin crisped up and all that fat rendered out. And if you start at too high of a heat, it's just gonna burn. Ooh, and they are just about ready to come out. All right, so let's get these on the plate right now. Just set them aside and let's start working on our tomatoes and our tomato samjang. We're sticking with a basic supermarket samjang. And over here we have our tomatoes. Once, half like that, then quarter. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take out the core like this. Then we're gonna save all the cores and the seeds in a separate little bowl. Now we're gonna take a spoon and we're going to take out all of the seeds and we're gonna set them aside in this bowl right here. Remember, these are cherry tomatoes, so they have a lot of this beautiful seed pulp in there. Is that we're going to take our samjang and we're going to mix it into this. In goes the samjang. All right, so here we have our D, the duck standing in for the bacon, and then we have our T, the tomato, and the L, the lettuce, comes in the form of sam. Now, this is a very standard assortment of sam that you'd find just about any home or restaurant that you go to. Not just one kind of lettuce, that's boring. What we want a nice variety, different textures. Some are spicy, some are sweet. And then what you want to do is just want to take a piece of this, a little bit of tomato, some samjang, some duck in there, and then wrap it all up in some greens, and then in you go. So here's a 1 tomato recipe down. Now I'm going to show you how to do fried green tomato chun. Here's a word of warning. So when you go out and buy green tomatoes, keep in mind that we're using actual unripe red tomatoes that are green. We just can't use those because they're just not firm enough. If you listen to this, that's firm. So we're just gonna take our green tomatoes and slice them. Nothing fancy, just slice them. Sprinkle on just a touch of salt. We're just gonna crack a couple eggs right into our bowl. Don't want to get too much foam in there, don't incorporate too much air. Just want to stir it around until it's nice and incorporated. All right, so the rule when making chun or breading any sort of product, the dry ingredients that we have right now is flour. The wet ingredients we have right now are the tomatoes. All right, just want to shake off any of the excess. Now, we want to get these just a little bit more golden brown delicious than you'll find a lot of chun here in Korea. A lot of people like their chun a little bit on the paler side, on the more delicate side. Smell great. These smell fantastic. Because not only do you have that beautiful smell of the chun being cooked, you can smell that tomato through it as well. Even though the tomato's not ripe, it still has that fragrance, that smell of a tomato.
So, can we start to dig in?
Absolutely.
Well, mine's shaped like a heart. Take a look at this.
All right, look at that.
Look at this, right? You can get it shaped in it.
For you.
It's a special one. Look at this.
Ooh, it's
Is it good?
Yeah, the great thing about green tomatoes is that they've got a lot more acidity. They're really bright and they've got a fantastic texture to them. So when you fry them up, it holds up for one to being cooked in the oil. But it's also that that zing that's got that really cuts through the richness of being pan fried.
It just feels so healthy, even though it's fried.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess that's one good way to sort of balance it all out. Yeah.
And take a look at this. It's a green cherry tomato, right? I've never seen these before.
Yeah, so in the West it would be known as a grape tomato, in terms of that shape. Here it's known as a techu tomato. So the techu, it's the jujube, and shape-wise they kind of resemble each other. And the great thing about tomatoes that this small is that they really pack in the nutrients. When you can compare it to a larger, a plum beefsteak tomato, the larger garden varieties, pound for pound, it just packs it all in, a lot more. And whether you're talking about the vitamin C that tomatoes are full of, or lycopene, which is that great sort of heart-healthy nutrient that's found in tomatoes. If you're going for health benefits, think small.
Think small. Okay, so I mean, kids love those little cherry tomatoes.
It's a great snack.
You just go ahead and give it to them, right?
Cooking them with oil can preserve their nutrients. And is there any other way we can preserve their nutrients when eating tomatoes?
Well, it's not so much preserving the nutrients as it is it's bringing them out. Yes, it's bringing, because a lot of them are fat soluble. So oil being a fat you find that as they cook in that oil, it goes into the oil. So say you're making a tomato sauce. You put in a nice, bright, beautiful olive oil in there, then it just helps disperse all those nutrients.
Oh, so cooking is actually better.
Yeah, I mean, cooking is better, but I mean, when you start with an ingredient that's as fantastic as the tomato, nutrient speaking, you can't go wrong anyway.
All right.
Okay, I want to try this before we wrap up the show.
Go for it.
It is rock hard.
It's rock hard.
All right, well, thank you, Matthew.
Always a
There you
pleasure.
Thanks
go.
for the food.
All right, well, that just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
All right, enjoy your Friday, and we will see you back here on Monday morning at 7 a.m.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Food.